Hi HR Nation, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. Today I have a special guest on the show. I'm joined by Andy Storch, who's a consultant, coach, speaker, podcaster, specializing in talent development. On today's show, we're discussing his new book, Own Your Career, Own Your Life. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Yo, Chris, I am so excited to be here. I'm honored. I'm a big fan of yours and all the work that you guys do with this podcast and your summits. And I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me.
Me too, man. We're like mutual fanboy, like fanboying over each other. So it's now you one up me because you've got a book. So now I have to go out. That means I have to go out and write a book now. See what you've done?
Yeah, that's right. Well, maybe I'll put the pressure on you. I'll hold you accountable.
First and foremost, how are you? How are things?
Everything is good. I know you've been following some of the journey I've been posting on LinkedIn. It's been quite a whirlwind the last few months. Everything was growing with the podcast and community I run. And I published my first book in November. And of course, I was also diagnosed with testicular cancer like the exact same time. And I went in and had surgery 2 days after I published my book. And so the last few months have been quite a tough journey with some ups and downs, going through treatment in January and February. And we're getting into April now, and I'm feeling better, having more energy, starting to do more of these interviews, and hoping to be done with it soon. But it's been quite a challenging journey. And interesting enough, I wrote in my book about the things that you need to do, about having the right mindset to overcome challenges. And I thought I had faced some challenges in my life leading up to that, but this has definitely been the ultimate challenge, the biggest challenge I've faced so far. And it's been interesting. We're
all here for you, obviously, and I'm glad you're feeling better, and obviously just continue fighting. You've been inspirational to everyone, man.
Thank you.
Following and it's interesting because your book's taken on a whole new meaning I'm sure to yourself in your own life in terms of owning your career, owning your life.
Yeah.
Have you leaned more so into the book and the work you do? Is it giving you even more of an appreciation for the work that you do?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mentioned like in the book, I talk about the importance of mindset and the questions to ask when you face big challenges and turning challenges into opportunities, looking for silver linings, things like that. And it was like, now I get to put this into practice. I really get, I'm facing this challenge now. And not only do I get to put it into practice, I get to learn from this and I get to share with others, because if I want to find a silver lining, it's that I get to use this experience to help and inspire others. I can't just keep it to myself, right? And so that's why I've been sharing all along the way, the ups and the downs. And it's really helped me renew my focus on gratitude. I've always been big on gratitude, writing down my gratitude every day in my journal. But it's been harder at some times, but I've been really focused on that. And reminding other people that no matter what challenge you're going through, we all have challenges, and there's no competition. There's not, yours is not easier or harder than mine. We all have stuff we have to deal with, but we all have things that we can be grateful for on a daily basis, whether it's our family, our friends, our job, our, even just, a nice cup of coffee or tea in the morning, whatever it is. There's always things we can be grateful for. That's helped me get through it. And then another thing, when we are facing these big challenges that at the time seem like, this is insurmountable, this is awful. I remind myself often of the nature of impermanence and the idea that things don't last forever, right? This is the thing that we get to deal with right now. And there was a quote, I don't know if you call it a quote, but something a friend of mine, Lauren Davis, shared with me as I was going into this journey. I think she had it tattooed on her arm, and the saying is, this is how it is right now. And as I'm going through the worst moments of this, going through chemotherapy and just feeling awful and thinking, I don't know if I can get through another day or week of this. I remember that phrase, this is how it is right now. It's not going to be like this forever. So I'm going to, use my strength and resilience to get through this moment. It's going to be better tomorrow and better tomorrow. And sure enough, a couple of months ago, I could barely walk. And now I'm, standing here talking to you with this mic and with plenty of energy and excitement. And things do get better, but we've got to do the right things. We've got to develop that resilient mindset. We've got to focus on gratitude, and we will get through it.
Yeah. It's interesting because like even with my own anxiety, I have panic attacks. I suffer from anxiety, and you feel really lost and lonely when you feel like there's no out, there's no ending.
And that causes even more stress and anxiety, right? When you feel like there is no, I was listening to something the other day who was saying, one of the definitions or things that cause depression is the lack of hope, right? And when you feel like this is always how it's going to be.
Yes.
And if we even take this back to work, it's a stressful situation at work and you're constantly in this state of stress. It can be really detrimental to your health. And so you've got to be able to take a step back and say, ask yourself, what's most important? And is this going to last forever? Is this a temporary thing? I will get through this. And then, how can I improve and get better for the future? What's great about this? To go into this is in my book, but when I face a challenging situation, there's 3 questions I like to ask. Number 1 is, what's great about this? There's usually some silver lining, that you can find. For instance, COVID was awful for many of us. My whole business was selling and running in-person training. You were running in-person events, when COVID hit. Both of us had our business almost, shut down overnight. But what's been great about it is I have 2 kids and I've been home with them every night, for the last year. It's been great. And we've both found ways to pivot and even found a business even better that, like you and I were talking, we can make just as much money without having to go out and, do things in person. The second question is, what can I learn from this? So there's lessons in all of these things. When we face these challenges, how can I get better? Maybe I made a mistake. How can I get better for next time, right? What can I learn from this situation? And then the third question is, what does this make possible? And we don't often realize it, but some of the greatest challenges we face often open up new opportunities. For instance, COVID, created these opportunities for you now host these amazing virtual summits, right? Bringing more people together than you ever could have imagined doing it in person, right? We've both pivoted to virtual things. I see it all the time with people that get laid off and lose jobs, and it's so awful in the moment, but then they find that next job that's like the dream job, right? And it never would have been possible if it wasn't for them losing their job in the first place. So what does this make possible? And you start to look for those silver linings, you look for those lessons, you look for those opportunities, and it can often make things better. And it's not always easy. When someone in your family dies or you're facing cancer, it's harder to answer those questions. But if you look deep enough, there's often answers there. And I find that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. So going back to the very beginning of this book, what was the inspiration behind it? Was there a specific moment where you had that aha moment? When did you decide, all right, I'm writing this book?
Yeah. A lot of these things had been coming together for me for years, being really into personal development, working a lot in the talent development space and consulting. I've had the benefit of working with executives and managers running workshops all over the world and seeing what makes people successful, but also seeing so many people that are kind of drifting along in their careers and not really living intentionally or really owning their careers, just kind of operating in reaction mode, waiting for other people to tell them what to do, their boss, their colleagues, whatever it may be. And I wanted to create something to wake people up, give them a little bit of a roadmap to take more ownership of their lives. Now, it wasn't necessarily a book that was on my mind, but there was that big aha moment. It actually happened at a conference I was attending in London, not too far from you there, in November 2019. I had seen a speaker talk about writing a best-selling book, and then I was being interviewed by a friend of mine for his YouTube channel, and we started chatting, and for something he said just brought it all together for me. It was like a lightning bolt moment, and I realized I'd been giving talks on this sort of stuff. I had been, writing and posting about these things, and I can bring it all together in a book. And one of the other big inspirations was that, and Chris, maybe you see this too with us being kind of in the entrepreneurial world as well as this corporate world. You hear this message all the time that if you don't like your job, you need to quit the 9-to-5 and go start your own business, right?
It's that easy.
And so many people are, shouting that message. And I'm like, that's cool. Like I did, and I personally love being an entrepreneur, but it is not for everybody, right? There's a lot of people out there that have no interest in ever taking that risk or running their own business.
Or they don't really know what it means. Right.
Yeah, they don't know what it means. Or like all the risks that come with it. And one of the things that I always tell people if they're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur is like, yes, you have this passion and skill, but don't forget when you become an entrepreneur, you're now in sales as well, right? And a lot of people have no interest in doing that, which is totally fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. Some people love the community and camaraderie that comes working in a company. And so I wanted to create a resource that can help people who are in that situation that, maybe you don't love what you're doing today, you're not going to go off and run your own business, but people just want to be happy and fulfilled in their careers. And I want to help more people take ownership of their careers, live more intentionally, be more happy and fulfilled, and prepare for the future. The second section of my book is all about preparing for the future, because the future of work is uncertain. Things are changing all the time. We saw that in 2020, and there's things we can do to help us be more prepared. And so I wanted to bring all of my knowledge together that I'm hearing all the time in the entrepreneurial world, and really share that with people that are staying in the corporate world.
When you say like take control of or own your career, at what stage are you saying that people should start doing that? From their very first job, when they first come in? Because most people's first job is just a job. It isn't like, oh, this is my why, my purpose. I can't wait to do this. Ideally, if you have got that in your first job, amazing. But let's be honest, the vast majority of people, that's not the case.
Yeah. And I was in the same situation, right? The first few jobs, I had many jobs where I'm like, okay, well, this is the next thing that's coming my way. There's not much else out there, or, whatever it is. And I think you can take ownership at any point. This is helpful for people coming out of university. This is helpful for people in their 50s who are, later in your career, and you're thinking, okay, I've done this and this. How do I take more ownership going forward? And it's certainly not about feeling guilty for anything you've done in the past. It's about taking ownership going forward. And, I think I was drifting through much of my 20s. I was doing jobs that I didn't completely, in a career I didn't really enjoy. And I didn't really feel like I had a direction for where I wanted to go. And that's okay. And I was also exploring, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, I think it's great early in your career to try a lot of different things and don't feel like you have to be building that big career. You have to be on the right trajectory. There's some kind of pressure that if you get off course, it's going to be bad. I mean, go travel the world, go try different jobs, try different things, see what you like and what you don't like. I think that's part of, owning your career and having a plan. The problem occurs, and what was plaguing me, is when you're not really focused at all on what your priorities are. You don't have a vision for where you want to go, and you're not really spending time helping you achieve any kind of goals. So, I look back at my 20s, I was spending a lot of time watching sports and going out drinking with friends at night, right? And nothing wrong with those things. I was socializing and building a network. But there's so much more I could have done to be moving forward and advancing my career, instead of spending a lot of time doing things that weren't, really adding value. And in the book, I write about the importance of setting a vision and having clarity for where you want to go. There's, you don't know what's going to come to fruition, and things are always going to change. It doesn't have to be set in stone, but I have found that the more clarity you have on where you want to go with your career, the easier it is to make decisions when those opportunities come along, right? A recruiter calls you, or a friend mentions a job opportunity, or maybe you get laid off and you got to find something else. Or people just ask you like, hey, what do you want to do? How can I help you? I've been that guy that didn't have that answer. And so people had no way to help me. But when you know where you want to go, or you have some semblance of clarity, you can say, yeah, I work in finance now, but I really want to try marketing or HR. People can say, oh, I know someone that works in that. You should talk to them and start making introductions, and it can help you, advance along and try different things. But when you have no clarity, you have no idea what you're doing, and you're just kind of waiting for someone, then you're going to be living someone else's career, someone else's life. They're going to tell you what to do, and you're not really going to own it. You're going to be less happy and fulfilled as a result.
Mm-hmm. What would you then say to those people and say, that's great, Andy, but I don't know what I want?
Yeah. And it's not easy, right? And I've been there too. I think there's a lot of self-reflection involved. And, when I say that, it sounds simple, but most people don't take much time to reflect on who they are and what they truly want. So that means thinking about, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you really enjoy? What do you like doing? What lights you up? When do you find yourself, in the zone and in the flow, if you will? What things do you not like doing? And if you're unhappy with a certain situation with your job, what is it about that? Is it your boss? Is it the commute? Is it the hours? Is it the type of work you're doing? Would you rather be working with people more often or less often? And then you got to talk to people who know you and get ideas and feedback, right? Talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends, talk to your family if you trust their opinion on it. Oftentimes the people around us see our strengths and things that we're good at, and could say, oh, Chris, you're so good at organizing events. Have you thought about putting a company, starting something where you can actually, get people together, organize events on a regular basis? If you've read the book Multipliers by Liz Weissman, she talks about it in terms of people's native genius, right? And oftentimes we don't even know what our own strengths are, or we know that we're pretty good at something, but we just assume if we're good at it, then everybody must be good at that, right? Yeah. Which is not true at all, right? No, usually right. Other people are looking at us in awe, like, oh my God, you're so good at doing that thing. I wish I could do that like you. And we often need to get that feedback from other people. And then we can start to get some clarity and figure out, okay, what would be a dream job? What would be a dream scenario? And if I were going to go after that, how would I get there? And that's the other challenge, or the thing that I think holds a lot of people back, is maybe they have that dream or that idea of what they want to do, but they never sit down and make a plan and actually put goals together, right? And, I use this quote sometimes in the keynotes that I give, that, a goal without a plan is just a wish, right? And so many people have these wishes, right? Oh, I wish, I would love to run a business and a podcast like you, Chris, or I would love to become the vice president or a CFO one day. But unless you have a plan to get there, it's probably not going to happen. So sit down and set some goals, some SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, actionable, relative, and time-bound, and start to talk to people, right? Share those goals with some of your colleagues or an accountability partner, somebody that can help you, and then go out and find the people that can not only hold you accountable, but help you along the way. Because if you want to make that move from finance to HR, you've got to set that goal and say, okay, I'm going to do it by June. And here's how I'm going to get there. I'm going to start talking to 5 people a week who work in HR. I'm going to go take this course, this online course. I'm going to read a book, and I'm going to get it done by this date. And when you start to put a plan in place and set goals, that's when you start moving forward towards that thing that you want. And maybe you get there and you find out that it's not what you really wanted, but at least you gave it a shot, right? And then some other opportunity is going to come up, because you're always moving forward instead of just sitting there waiting for someone else to tell you what to do.
One of the things that frustrates me, and it happens a lot with my close friends and family members, is that they complain about how much they hate their job, they don't like it, they don't like their manager, but they're the same people that don't do anything about it to change the situation.
People love to sit around and complain and commiserate, and it feels good in the moment, but it doesn't ever solve anything. So in the book, I put out a no complaining challenge.
Did you?
Okay, you've got to stop complaining for a day, for a week, see how you like it. And the next time you find that you're unhappy with a situation, instead of just sitting around complaining, put a plan together, like you said, right? Say like, okay, I'm not happy with my job. Here's why. Here's what I want to change. And then, hey, Chris, I'm thinking about making this move. Can you help me? And that's when you're like, oh yeah,
call me.
Person and this person, right? You're ready to help your friends when they tell you what they want to do. But when they just want to complain, what are you supposed to do with that?
I think when I delve deeper into it with people, it seems that the fear of failure outweighs their dislike for their current job, for example. So they'd rather carry on with a job that they don't like than risk going to do something else and failing. And that seems to be the trend. And or there's this other, and I had this other, the second thing I'm about to talk about is something I suffered with, or they feel like they have to have everything figured out before making the move.
So many people are perfectionists, right? They take pride in being a perfectionist. It holds you back. It holds so many people back. Remember, progress over perfection. Progress is always better than perfection, because you can always pivot, iterate, change things. But you're right. When we're just sitting there complaining, it feels easier than, well, if I actually go out and change something, right? What if I leave my job and then the next job is even worse, or I don't find the job that I like, right? You've got to take that risk. And fear holds so many people back. It's fear of failure, fear of rejection, and fear of judgment. It's fear of those 3 things that hold people back so often. And it's natural. It's ingrained in our brains from thousands of years of evolution. But we've got to find the courage to move past that. The most successful people that we admire are people that took risks, were willing to fail, try things, and then they learned along the way and got better as a result. But first they had to take that risk, right? And that's what holds so many people back. But I think you got to factor you and I are talking about leaving a job. A lot of people, like we said, want to stay in working, maybe want to try something different. You got to factor all those things in. And you got to think about what's really important to you, connect with your values, your purpose, your priorities, what's important to you? What do you truly want to do? And then one of the things I love to think about is ask yourself ask your future self what they would want you to do, or go as far as, you're 90 years old and you're on your deathbed. What are you going to appreciate and what are you going to regret from your life? And chances are you'll wish you took those risks and you tried those different things. You rarely talk to people at the end of their life thinking, oh man, I wish I would have played it safer. Right. And people, that book.
I wish I stayed in that job I hated. Yeah.
Yeah. 5 Regrets of the Dying. The number one regret of the dying is people say, I regret that I didn't live a life true to myself. That's the number one regret. And you think about that. And then I combine that with a quote I heard from my friend Dominic Cortuccio. This is getting deep for the HR Leaders podcast. But
no, let's go for it.
The definition of hell is getting to the end of your life and meeting the person you could have become.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a tough one.
So, I mean, you think of it so I let that guide me when I'm thinking about these big decisions or the risk or like, what am I going to try? And when I'm coaching people on that, it doesn't have to be really dramatic and you don't have to quit your job and go travel the world. But just think about like, what are you going to appreciate? What are you going to regret later? Talk to your future self. And if your future self says like, yeah, you've been thinking about getting into HR, or you've been thinking about marketing, or you've been thinking about going for that promotion, like just go for it. Like what's the big deal? If it doesn't work out, then go get another job, try something else. You've got a long career in front of you. If you're only 30 or 40 or even 50, people are working you interviewed Josh Burson recently, and I've talked to him about like the multi-generations that people are working in their 70s now. So you have time.
I'm like, Dave, Josh, come on, retire. Just let some of us have some limelight. Come on.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I know. He won't go away, right? Because he's just like so passionate and fascinated. And it's easier and easier to keep working, right? You're not out in a field or a farm, like you're at a desk on a computer or a smartphone.
Yeah.
So we can keep going on.
And then again, like the definition of retirement, what does that even mean? Because when I speak to like people like Josh about that, this is their fun. This is what they enjoy. This is their hobby.
If you love what you do, you may never retire because you are enjoying it. The whole point of retirement is to stop doing that thing that you didn't like doing so you can finally enjoy life, right?
Yeah.
Why not find something you like doing and enjoy it now? Right?
What are the roles for companies then? Because, I expressed, this is just an example for me personally, hopefully it will give you a better picture of what I'm trying to explain. Like I left my company because they didn't give me the opportunity to pursue some of those avenues inside that business. So I expressed, I was a sales director, and I expressed that, I want to get involved in more product development because my creative side, I love building things. I love, listening to the customer and building products and solving problems really. And they were like, no, stay in your lane, stay in sales. Right. And then same with the podcast. I was like, look, I think it'd be a really cool idea that we created a podcast because I'm speaking to HR executives every day. Wouldn't it be nice for us to tell their story in a unique way? Nope. Stay in your lane, Chris. Right. and that was what led me to quit. And start my company. And can you imagine how many people are like me that companies that are losing? So many.
It's funny how parallel our stories are too, because in my late 20s, I worked for an insurance company, and I had this revelation about, thinking about my strengths and what I enjoyed doing and what I didn't like doing. And I went to my manager and said, I think if I spent more time doing this other thing, I just realized I'm really good at giving presentations, standing up in front of people, and getting into sales and like talking to people. You let me go spend more time in the field, talking to people. I think that I could bring a lot of value. And he said, no, stay in your lane. It's the same thing you got, right? Yeah. You need to stick with being a data analyst and look at spreadsheets all day, which I was decent at, but I didn't enjoy. And I left that job. And I've often thought, and I'm so glad everything is part of our journey, right? And I'm so glad everything happened the way it did to get me to where I am now, because I absolutely love my career and my life. By the way, later on, I worked for a consulting company, great company. I started getting into podcasting. I went to my manager and said, I think we should start a podcast where I interview HR leaders. And I run a podcast now on talent development, right? The talent development hot seat, talent development and like clients, and use that to improve our brand. And he said, no, it's a waste of time. Stay in your lane. Right. So I ended up leaving and starting a podcast. And we both now have these podcasts and brands because someone told us not to do it. And we did it on our own. So and I'm so glad all that happened because I love where I am, but I've reflected on that a lot and thought, if that manager early on had just said, that's a great idea. I've noticed that you are really good at X and I want to cater this job more to your strengths, I might still be working for that company today. Mm-hmm. Right. And you might still be working for your company, running a podcast and being rewarded for that. So I think for organizations, it starts with like getting to know your people, understanding what their strengths are, having your managers become better career coaches and have those conversations and ask people like, what do you like doing? Where do you want to go with your career? How can I support you? And instead of taking this like scarcity mindset of like, people just have to stay in their lane, do what they're, do their defined roles. And I'm not going to help people move up because it might, threaten my own career. A lot of managers have that mindset, which is unfortunate. But actually like, take that mindset that we're going to support our people. We're going to be curious. We're going to have communication. We're going to talk to them. We're going to coach them. And we're going to provide a lot more opportunities for them to develop, to move up, to move around, to do different things. If work remotely, if they want to, work in the office if they want to, provide more flexibility and more challenging situations. I think people are a lot more, when they work in situations like that, they're happier, they're more fulfilled, and they stay longer.
Yeah, and the benefit and the business benefits.
And the business benefits, right? They're more productive, they get more done. Just look at this pandemic over the last year. It's been fascinating. So many old school traditional companies that said, we will never let you work remotely. Right? People have to be in the office to get things done. We can't trust them. And then overnight, everybody had to just let everybody go work from home, right? There was no choice. And we've seen productivity go up. We've seen engagement go up. People are getting more done. The downside, of course, is there's more burnout because people are working a lot more. They're not taking holidays or vacations. But we can trust people to work flexibly and go get work done. And we can have conversations and find out, what do you truly want to do? And maybe give them some assignments in different areas and let them try different things. Let them be entrepreneurs, if you will, like come up with new ideas. And maybe they stay with you longer and come up with that innovative idea that helps the company grow. You just never know, but you've got to trust and empower people first, right? And become a multiplier, not a diminisher, to go back to the language again from one of my favorite leadership books, Multipliers by Liz Weissman.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting as well, because when I realized that was something I was struggling with, and I was obviously a leader at the time, I was thinking, I wonder how my team's feeling. Am I giving them the opportunities that they want? And I realized there were members of my team that were saying, I kind of sat down with them and said, I actually did it as a group, but then I did it one-on-one after. And I had people like, yeah, actually, Chris, I'd be interested in building the programs for our events. So rather than selling, I'm actually more interested in the content, the subject matter. And I was like, oh, cool. And then they kind of, I spoke with the rest of the other departments. They were hiring. It's amazing. The person has the product knowledge. They know our customers. They know our audience. There's so much transferable skill there. And they've now become the best content producers in some of the biggest HR companies in the space, right? Similar with my video editor. He was just a friend of mine, and he had a passion for Ivan, who produces this show. There would be no show without Ivan. And he just enjoyed editing video games and doing live streaming. And I was like, could you do that in a corporate context and take the same skills you learned video editing games and live streaming games on LinkedIn? And can we transfer that over? And that's what we do over here as well. So there's so many hidden skills within organizations that, we that CV that first comes in the door 10 years later is very different. Those people do pick up skills outside and grow and develop. And there's so many companies going outside for skills when they already exist in their business already.
That's why you see like the best companies and managers hiring people for potential and skills rather than a perfect fit for this exact role that we're putting together, right? And then you've got to stay in your lane and only do this role forever. Like the job's going to change anyway. Yeah. You think about jobs, they're changing all the time. Use this example in my book talking about the future of work. I mean, every company now has a social media manager or a whole team, right? That job didn't even exist 15 years ago.
It's right? So true, yeah.
You and I have podcast production teams, editors. That job didn't exist 15 years ago.
Nope.
And there's going to be new jobs in 15 years that don't exist today. So we've got to keep learning and networking and building our skills and trying different things. It's not about just sticking to your lane. especially as we move more into this, I don't know if you see this coming, the gig economy, right? Where people are going to do more project-based work. People are going to be moving around more. So you might as well embrace that and prepare for it now.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point. It's going to be project-based now, not just function. And I think the whole hierarchy, the traditional structure is going to kind of disappear. And we're already seeing that happening now with distributed teams. And it's interesting because I've got clients now where I'm on the call with them, and because they're no longer office based, I'll have their European team on the call, their North American team on the call, and they've never even met before.
Right.
And now because we're in the virtual environment, are working on these projects together, which is sparking innovation, cross-functional collaboration, et cetera, that's coming from that.
Amazing things are happening. And real quick, because I know we got to probably wrap up soon, but in the middle section of my book, I talk about preparing for the future of work and preparing for those opportunities in that gig economy. There's 3 main things you can do to prepare for that. Number 1 is invest in continuous learning. Don't wait for your company to provide development opportunities for you. You've got to be learning because those jobs are changing. You never know what's going to happen. So, listen to Chris's podcast, follow content creators on LinkedIn, take online courses, go get a degree if you want to. The second thing is build your network. You got to be out there building relationships, right? People inside your company and outside your company. Dig your well before you're thirsty. Don't wait until, that need comes along. Start building relationships now, because you never know where that next opportunity is going to come from. And you've got to be intentional now that we're all working remotely. That means reaching out to people on LinkedIn or in your company and saying, hey, can we get on Zoom and do a 15-minute coffee chat and just get to know each other? I want to know what you're working on, how I can support you. And number 3 is build your personal or professional brand. And your personal brand is essentially just your reputation among your colleagues and the marketplace. And whether you're intentional or not, you have a reputation, you have a personal brand. So you might as well be intentional about building that. And that doesn't mean to try to be fake or anything. Be authentic, be who you are, but think about how you show up, what type of projects you take on, how you're working with other people, how you collaborate, if you share content on LinkedIn and other places, because it's a myth that people get promoted or get jobs based entirely on their skills or their past experience. It's on who they know, and it's their reputation, their brand in the company and in the marketplace. 100%. Right? You've got to be intentional about those things.
Before I let you go, where can people check you out? So tell everyone about the 2 podcasts you have, and also where can they grab a copy of the book as well?
Yeah, so the book is Own Your Career, Own Your Life. It's available on Amazon or anywhere you want to purchase the book. And I have some free resources available on our website, including the 3 questions I mentioned earlier that you ask whenever you face a challenge, as well as a 5-step guide to owning your career. That's all at ownyourcareerownyourlife.com/bonus, ownyourcareerownyourlife.com/bonus. And then also for anybody in your audience who works in talent development, I run a podcast called The Talent Development Hot Seat. And I also run a membership community called the Talent Development Think Tank, where we bring people together in the talent development community. We have live calls every week. We bring in guest speakers to talk about the latest trends and things going on in talent development. And it's really a lot of fun. And I'm all about, connecting people, building communities, hosting events like you. And I'm planning on doing more events in the future, virtual and in person. But it starts with that community. And I really my dream is to inspire more people to bring more people together, but inspire more people to own their careers. So get the book, check out the resources, reach out to me if you have questions. I'm active on social media everywhere. And Chris, I just really appreciate you having me on.
It's been a pleasure. It took way too long for us to make it happen, but we're here. We're busy, so we managed to make it happen.
What's going on?
Yeah. For everyone listening, those links are already in the comment section. So click the link below now. Go grab a copy of the book. Also, make sure you follow Andy on LinkedIn as well. There'll be a link to follow him there, and definitely get those free resources. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your day, and obviously get well soon. And I look forward to doing this again.
Absolutely. I'll have to have you on my show soon, Chris, and we'll talk more.
Thanks a lot.